It's interesting because I've been researching this a lot, actually, in different psychoanalyses of why people, develop same-sex attraction and, different kind of sexual attractions that are disordered. Where do these come from? And then, obviously people that are hypersexual, where does that come from? Because, sexual disorder doesn't just exist in same-sex attraction.
No,
it absolutely can exist in heterosexual attraction. And, lust is lust, whether it's for someone that you're not married to or someone that is, period, someone you're not married to, sexual attraction that is disordered, right? When you're acting on it. And so, but, it's interesting, the psychoanalysis that I've looked at, and some of this is done from the vantage point, I think, of natural law and not, some of the Freudian type of psychoanalysis. And Freud was this, father of sexology in the 20th century who thought everybody is just a sexual animal and, everything is repressed sexual desire. So he had his take on it. But this other one, and maybe we'll do an episode more on this in the future, but basically said, the mysterious in the masculine and the feminine, sometimes same-sex attraction can come from something is made, we reject something that seems, we don't want to be part of it. If men are all just going to take advantage of us, why would I want to be interested in the masculine, as a feminine? And then as a feminine, if we kind of, maybe we're more like the tomboy or something, we can maybe find ourselves drawn to the hyper feminine or the very feminine, and that can turn into down the line same-sex attraction. So I don't know if you have thoughts on all of that. I'm sure you've sort of done your own studies on that, but it's one of the things that I find is an interesting theory for how these things develop and how some of their roots can come from how we were parented or things that we're missing, or maybe over, there's more of it than for other kids in our childhood.
Yeah. I mean, the Lord is actually walking me through that now. I'm in counseling, and this is counseling that I chose. It wasn't for, make me straight, God. It's not this thing that so much of the world is saying. This is actually like, Lord, what's really going on? Because so much of our life, or I'll speak for myself, so much of my life shows fruit. And for me, I was so used to picking fruit off a tree. And I feel like God's like, wait a minute, will you let me get to the root? Will you let me show you what's really going on? And do you trust me to come into that place? Right. And so for me, I mean, just two of the things you mentioned, I can see that. Even for me growing up, I would categorize myself as a tomboy. I don't really know what that means. Like every boy I met has been Tom. So I don't know why that's a term for women. But anyways, yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up with two brothers. So I can see a lot of different things. For me personally, there was never sexual abuse or any physical abuse. So growing up, I'm like, why do I have these desires?
Praise God.
But I knew people who did have abuse in their life. And then it led to different things, whether it be a hypersexuality or same-sex attraction or different things. But I knew that I didn't have that. So I'm like, I was sitting with God in high school, like, why me? Like, what happened to me? Why am I messed up? Is really what I was thinking. And I would pray, Lila. I was like, God, take this away from me. Take this away from me. See, I didn't know that love, because the world says love is give and take. But the reality is love is giving and receiving. There's no taking in love. Like if I offer something up to God, he'll receive it, but he's not going to take it. There's like a difference. And so even in that, but I'm seeing so much. I'm seeing the relationship between my mom and I, which I love her dearly. We're very close, but I can see the ways that she wasn't even able to be there for me emotionally. She was always present, but emotionally, she didn't have a lot of grid for how to be there for me, not just regarding same-sex attraction, just me being a little girl, because her own mother wasn't there, And so I can see how I was going out seeking this female, right? Type thing. And then it goes to a whole nother thing. It started off, I will say this, it started off as just seeking companionship. And then that began to grow. It was not like, oh my gosh, I just want to kiss this girl,
Right. Well, I think that's one of the things in our culture. And I hear these stories all the time. I mean, people close to me that we're longing for something, right? We're all longing, like you said earlier, so beautifully, for connection, for companionship, and especially in our childhood, if we're missing sort of that feminine or the masculine is represented to us in a in a broken way, quite frankly. No parent is perfect. All of our parents and we as parents, for those that are going to make our mistakes. So the goal is always to improve, right? And to learn and grow in self-awareness. But when a child or an adolescent is, maybe craving the feminine, and they are feminine, but they don't understand the feminine. They don't feel like they're understood in their feminine, and they don't, they maybe have the masculine looks like a negative thing to them, then it can become eroticized.
Yes.
And this is some of the psychoanalysis stuff that I'm reading and the psychiatrists, and that eroticization process can look different for each person. Sometimes it can be rooted in sexual abuse and the trauma from that. Sometimes it can be rooted in lacking, that close feminine contact of a mother, or, having a negative experience with the masculine. If I'm talking about from the woman's position, right? The man's position is different if it's a young boy. But it's also interesting, right? Because I think today there's such a crisis of identity and connection, and people are starving for those things.
We're longing for it.
And so they're trying to. So we're given labels, right? And the LGBT label is such a powerful and alluring label for so many people, because they're like, finally somebody gets me, is how I think many people feel. And then they feel, well, now I'm a part of a community that accepts me and will, accompany me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we were created